everybody, welcome to Comm 101. This week we'll be talking about the Blue Origin's first all-female space crew launch. The internet cannot stop talking about this, or roasting it, as the case may be. The flight included pop star Katy Perry, journalist and host of CBS Mornings Gayle, and Lauren Sanchez, who is the fiance of Blue Origin owner Jeff Bezos. So there's been a lot of roasts about how Katy Perry kissed the ground and she liked it, about how Taylor Swift has had longer music videos than Katy Perry's tenure in space, and most importantly, and not really as roasty but more accurately, about how the current administration has been wiping DEI, which includes female contributions to NASA, from all branches of federal government. So, real female astronauts and engineers and people that got us into space and to the moon have been, wiped off NASA's website. But Jeff Bezos was able to send a bunch of pseudo-celebrities into barely space. But I digress, because Comm 101 is really here to talk about the media at large and journalism and ethics. So let's take a trip. Okay, so back in 2013, Jeff Bezos, owner of Amazon, billionaire tech guy, buys the Washington Post, and for $250 million. And he enters the collective political consciousness. So there's a discussion in the media about how his anti-union practices and reported treatment of Amazon workers will end up impacting the newspaper, and what effects his purchase will have on the editorial and opinion pages specifically of the content of this very reputable newspaper. This is the paper that broke the Watergate scandal. In October of 2021, Jeff Bezos himself joined the crew of a Blue Origin flight. He went up on one of these well-made rocket ships, along with William Shatner, known around the world for his role as Captain Kirk on Star Trek. After this flight, the FAA went so far as to release new guidelines for commercial space astronaut titles. Because you're not an astronaut, Jeff. You're not. These are fully automated flights. There's no research being done by the people on board. I'm sure there is research being done that impacts us, but by the crew, there is no research being done. It's tourism. It's like saying, what does Rachel Green say? I went to the zoo, therefore I am a koala. In October of 2024, former president and then candidate Trump sues CBS News, which is still ongoing, alleging that a 60 Minutes interview done with then Vice President and candidate Kamala Harris misled the public and unfairly disadvantaged former President Trump for the election. In December of 2024, Jeff Bezos, by way of his company Amazon, donates $1 million to then President-elect Trump's inaugural fund. Bezos joined several other tech billionaires in what was widely seen at the time as an attempt to gain favor by the new administration. Many of these tech billionaires had previously not seen themselves as aligning with President Trump's policies. January 20th, 2025, Jeff Bezos and his fiancée Lauren Sanchez attend President Trump's inauguration. It's noted by most news outlets, including CBS News, that they stand among a row of some of the richest people and most influential people in the world, many of whom were invited because they donated to the inaugural fund. The internet and citizens at large of the world, and especially of the United States, refer to many of these people as oligarchs. February 2025, Lauren Sanchez, again, Jeff Bezos' fiance, announces the crew, again, we're using that word incorrectly, for the next Blue Origin launch. Among them, Gayle, journalist, host of CBS Mornings, best friend of Oprah. From this point onwards, CBS Mornings and CBS at large begin promoting live coverage of the flight. It is worth noting that CBS has done live coverage across all of their platforms of many, if not all, of the Blue Origin launches in the past. But the dramatic amount of advertising and intensity of the advertising leading up to and coverage leading up to the event was never quite this grand. April 14th, 2025, Blue Origin's New Shepard 31 launches successfully with Sanchez, Perry, and King on board and returns to Earth, thankfully. CBS spends hours engaged in live coverage in the lead up to the launch, in the launch itself, and post-launch. The internet is merciless. They mock the rich and the famous. The Kardashians are there. Oprah is there. Orlando Bloom is there. CBS broadcasts continue to call the women astronauts multiple times. April 15th, 2025, Gayle King has returned to New York and CBS News headquarters. She states, "There was nothing frivolous about what we do, so I'm very disappointed and very saddened by it," meaning the criticisms that have been going around. She had also previously said to People that anybody that's criticizing really doesn't understand what's happening here. So that brings us to here and now and why we're here in Comm 101. I guess I too am disappointed because there are ethics and motives that have not been made clear. And Gayle, as a journalist, it is in fact your responsibility to help us understand. So I do think we should inspire young women to want to go to space, but we're simultaneously wiping women with those skills and smarts to actually be astronauts off of NASA's website by help from the funding of Jeff Bezos. The cost of a Blue Origin flight is not transparent. There's a sliding scale based on your level of celebrity and social capital. And reportedly, like William Shatner, when he went up with Jeff Bezos, didn't pay anything, which makes sense because that's a pretty high social capital. When you think of space celebrities other than the real astronauts, you might think Mark Hamill and Harrison Ford, but you probably also think of William Shatner. He allegedly paid nothing. The costs and prices paid by the women who went on this 11-minute joyride have not been disclosed. And I think that is the disappointing part here. I take no issue with news outlets sending journalists to do extraordinary things, to come back and report on them for the greater good. But that didn't happen here. There was no long-form interview done during her time in space. If CBS News had, back in the day, paid for a seat on Amelia Earhart's journey across the Atlantic, and a reporter had done a long-form piece, like a documentary-style interview during that journey, and had disclosed that they paid for a seat on the plane, I think we would all be for it. There's value there. Right now, nobody knows who paid what. Maybe that information will come out. Maybe it won't. But my guess is that due to Blue Origin's way of doing this with a sliding scale of social capital, Bezos and Sanchez saw an opportunity to get countless hours of free advertising for a company, and with using a beloved news anchor who's a lovely human being, a talented journalist, and is a broadcast legacy news network that is owned by us, the people, by the way, but we'll get into who owns the media at another point. And I think they also saw it as a way to get back in the good graces of people who were mad at the Oligarchs Row visual. I think it backfired heavily, and I think the best way for everybody to recover from this is for there to be a larger discussion about who's paid for what and what really could have been done on this flight to make this a true, reason. There could have been a good reason for Gayle to go and do this, and it could have been of journalistic value. There was a lot of time spent talking to former NASA engineers. There was a lot in the lead up and in the post event where engineers were spoken to, astronauts were spoken to on the news broadcast, but I don't think the actual 11 minutes of space journey, you could do that on any news broadcast. You could say, hey, we've got Buzz Aldrin here. We've got NASA administrator here. We've got, there's a lot that can be done. And especially in times like these where people are being scrubbed from history, you could bring these people on instead and talk about their contributions. So I too am disappointed. Catch you next time, Comm 101.